So anyway, everybody, I'm excited because I get to interview a client or a former client and a friend from college days. And we're just going to have a conversation about emotional intelligence, spiritual maturity, and personality tests. I don't know how far we'll get into all three of those, but those are things that we have both found influential in our and very impactful in our own lives. And so we're just going to have a conversation in front of y'all about those topics. So welcome, Stephanie Goldsborough. So
Thank you.
all right.
Good to be
All right.
here.
All right. So Stephanie, tell us a little bit about yourself, where you live, if you're married, kids, how would you describe
Sure.
yourself?
Yeah, so we just moved this summer from Fresno, California, where we had lived for 10 years. And basically, in those years, we raised our kids out there. And then we're moving back to northern Michigan, where my husband is originally from. And we lived here as well for many years prior to California. So we're now living in Petoskey, Michigan, and I'm married to Jeremy. We met at college, the same college that April and I met at. And I have four children. So we have three boys and a girl. And our oldest is married, and they made the move with us too. He met his wife in Fresno and brought her across here to the frozen tundra. And Riley is our second, and he's 21. And then I have an 18-year-old who just headed off for his freshman year across the country to Phoenix, Arizona.
Mm.
And then I have my daughter, Lydia, who's still in high school. So she gets to finish up here and learn to drive in the snow. That's going to be quite the experience.
Oh my gosh. All right. So when we coached together, I remember we spent a lot of time talking about emotional intelligence, and you were the one that introduced me to the
Well, the Enneagram was like an obsession for me back then when we were coaching.
Mhm.
What that was like a couple years ago. And
Yes.
I did like a deep dive into that. Once I was introduced to it, I just like consumed whatever books I could find, podcasts. I talked to anybody who'd ever heard of it before, like even to the point where my kids were just like, oh no, mom's probably over there talking to them about the Enneagram. We're going to be here for a while. But it was just like, I mean, it's just a tool, it's just a method, but it was very helpful for me at that time in my life in relationships, like in figuring some things out, especially with my kids as they were getting older, just being puzzled by these, how they were so different and trying to get them to open up to me and the friction that we would have. And so my oldest son actually he was taking in his Christian school, taking like a life skills class. And one of their segments was on the Enneagram and personality and that kind of thing. And so he's the first one who told me about it. Like I was like, any what? I don't know what you're saying. How do you spell that? I've never heard of this. And so he was wanting me to take a test. And anyway, so I remember being introduced to that. And I don't remember because it didn't take root with me at that exact point. Later, somehow I was introduced to it again. It came up, but since he had mentioned it, I think it sparked more of an interest. And so and then I ended up ordering a book. So I read this book, The Road Back to You by Ian Morgan
Yes.
Cron. And I read through that. And through that, I was able to kind of figure out what my personality type was in that model. And my son it's one of these things where you're not supposed to type other people because it's supposed to be, you have to figure out your own motivations and your own fears and that kind of thing. So it's not like you can just go around saying, oh, they're probably this, they're probably that. You need to be
It's
able
not
to,
meant to be a judging tool.
yeah, because two different personality types could have the same behaviors, but they could be motivated by different things. So you don't know what is actually motivating them unless you know them really, really well. So he had done the test and figured out himself that he was an Enneagram 5. And there are nine different personality types, and it can go really deep. Like they're connected in all these different ways and everything. But just learning, okay, you're an Enneagram 5, I'm going to read all about that and see, and then my type, reading about that. And it just made it really clear to me why we had these certain friction points. Like it
Mm.
wasn't like there's something wrong with him or there's something wrong with me. It's just we're two different personalities. And it just made it so much clearer to me. Like I was able to like stop freaking out and just understand a little better why he operated the way he did, because I was just projecting onto him like he's going, wants to be in his room and doesn't want me walking into his personal space, just because he doesn't like me, or
Yeah.
he's trying to hide something or whatever. Like I would just make up these things that I thought were the reasons, and then I couldn't get him to like tell me why he's getting mad at me for wanting to come into his room and talk to him. And so learning about his personality type and reading about the typical behaviors or whatever of a type 5 helped me like realize, oh, okay, it doesn't mean he's bad. It just means he's different. And without getting into the weeds of what his personality type is and what mine is. But
No, I
anyway,
think
so
that's, yeah, what you're describing, I think that is the best and highest, most beautiful function of really great personality typing systems. And there's more
mhm,
than just the Enneagram. There's the, like,
yeah.
another popular one is the Myers-Briggs sort.
Hmm.
There's 16 different types in there. So there's 9 in the Enneagram, there's 16 in the Myers-Briggs. I'm a little bit more familiar with the Myers-Briggs or the Enneagram, but it's fascinating to see the overlays.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah.
And then there's, you want to get really into the weeds and stuff. There's like human, have you heard of human design?
No, I haven't heard of
No.
that one.
Okay. So that's one that really makes Christians uncomfortable because it's tied to the time you were born. So it feels like it's,
Oh.
astrology based or something like that.
Mm.
But I studied it just because typing fascinates me,
Hmm.
categorizing fascinates me.
Hmm.
And I was like, oh my goodness, a really good categorizing system is a really good categorizing system. I don't know
Hmm.
why they work. I don't know if I really truly believe that when you were born has impact on how your personality turns out.
Yeah.
But it is amazing, all the similarities that you see and all but what you said about, I think personality tests just open up this window that if you've never thought about it before, people are different. People are created to be different,
Mhm.
meant to be different. And those differences don't mean that something has gone wrong. It takes
Mhm.
all types to
Yeah,
make the world go
absolutely.
round.
And that's been a theme. It's just really cool to me how God just builds on things in our lives. Like, I mean, he knows us intimately, he sees us, he created us, and so he knows how to speak to us and how to teach us
Yes.
individually. And so for me, like for a long time, I've just recognized the fact that there's so much variety in nature itself. I mean, if obviously people, but then you see like so many varieties of trees and flowers and landscapes and weather and, I mean, just on and on, birds and animals and stuff. He didn't just, create one bird or one fish or one plant or one flower. He just bazillions, it feels like, of all
It's
these
almost
different
like he was
things.
showing off. Look how different
Yes.
I can make it.
I know, it's so awesome, but then they have similarities too, and
Yeah.
they'll operate in the same way. And so with people too, there's like, just so many varieties of people. We're all unique, and but we can have similarities with each other. And so it's kind of cool that you can have those categories and labels that you can kind of start
Yeah.
organizing it a little bit and seeing to understand each other a little better and understand ourselves a little better. But
Yeah.
yeah, like you said, that's part of the beauty of it. It's not a bad thing. It's the way that it was designed to be.
Yeah. My personal opinion is one of the reasons why we might have more than one categorizing typing system is because God is the creator, but then he gave to man the job of naming things and kind of organizing. And there is a discovery process in it that maybe we just don't see the whole picture. And there's there's just always this growth of understanding. And so that's why some people may see the Enneagram and be like, oh my goodness, this makes so much sense. And then other person might say, well, the MBTI method or the DISC method, or, or some people are just like, you guys are complicating it all,
Yeah.
It's just introvert versus extrovert, like, what's the problem?
Right.
Or I
Yeah.
don't like systems at all. I think we should just be, open to understanding people as they are and not try to put them in a box and a label. And I'm like, yes, it takes all kinds.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
But I think what you said about not typing other people, but typing yourself so you understand yourself better and just understanding. I think the more that we appreciate ourselves, the more that we will then go on to appreciate other people. And the more that we judge ourselves, the more we judge other people. What do you think about that?
I have totally seen that connection. Totally seen it. When I've started to give myself more grace, I notice giving other people more grace and vice versa. So I totally see that connection there. Yeah, for sure.
Isn't it interesting that we try to do better by other people first, and it feels so hard, because it's kind of like we're ignoring our, I call it the dark side,
Yeah.
And just trying to do good, and
right. Yeah.
But when we, but when we see ourselves and we kind of take care of ourselves and offer grace to ourselves, then it's like, oh my goodness, it's so much easier to offer grace to another person now. It just makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Like they always say, and I've heard this a lot in the emotional health arena, is putting on your own oxygen mask before you try to do that for other people. So, it makes sense. It makes a lot of logical sense to me.
Yeah. That's what always makes me, like, when we talk about like emotional health, because I used to not understand, I didn't have any language around this, like emotional health, spiritual maturity.
Sure.
And so I was making everything kind of a matter of, I must not be godly enough yet, kind of filtering it through that. And becoming a parent helps, because you realize, wait, one of the reasons that I am yelling at my kids today that I did not yell at them yesterday is because I didn't sleep well last night. Like, there's a difference between physical, strength and patience, the ability to exhibit patience. But also, one of the reasons why I was struggling to grow spiritually was because I did not even understand that emotional health, emotional intelligence was even a thing. In fact, and did you grow up this way too? It was like you were kind of told your emotions are not important, ignore your emotions, they're not dependable. Did you get that message growing up?
Oh yeah, pretty much. Whether it was directly said to me or indirectly implied, that these feelings and emotions, these strong, because I was pretty sensitive, these strong feelings and emotions that you have, I was sent the message. I don't know that anyone ever looked at me and said directly, like, these emotions are bad, but it was just, you realize, like, this is taking over me. I don't know what to do with it. I need to just stuff it down, because I wasn't taught what to do with them, how to recognize them. If they, they just felt bad, because they do. Those negative feelings, they feel bad. And so I'm like, why am I feeling these? And there must be something wrong with me. I can totally relate with you with the relating it to spirituality, and like, something must not be right there with my relationship with God, even though I'm trying, So yeah. And then, there's a lot of scripture that says, fear not. And I know that was said to me and preached to me a lot, was, don't fear. The Bible says not to fear. God's not given us that spirit of fear. And so I sometimes would translate that as, but I have like fear big time. So there must be something, like, and I can't figure out how to make it go away. So there must be something wrong with me spiritually, because I can't obey the Bible.
I remember, just literally like just getting so frustrated. They'd say, don't fear. And I'm just like, but how? But how do I not fear?
Yes.
So, the only thing in my life that I could translate that to. This is before I understood life coaching and how your thoughts create your feelings.
Mhm.
You know, fear is a feeling, and it was coming
Mhm.
from my thoughts. The only way before I realized that was to just pretend I wasn't afraid. Just fake it. I mean, and lie. I mean, like pretending on
Yeah.
is at some point lying. And then I was like really confused, like I am lying. I am
Mhm.
scared to death. I don't want to do this. I'm making myself do this, or all the
Yeah.
things. And yeah, it just created a lot of until I realized that, and I did a podcast on this very, very early in the podcast about thoughts and feelings, talking about I imagine that they're just two different sides of the same coin. So if you have a thought that creates fear, you also sometimes have a thought that creates joy, you have a thought that creates indifference. But if you are struggling with fear, and it's interesting because those verses in the Bible says, "Fear not, for I am thy God."
Mhm.
Well, when your thoughts about God are truly aligned with like who God really is, like when you really have an understanding and a picture of his majesty, his power, his ability to overcome, his loving kindness towards me, his way of working out plans and the way he's taking care of our future and all these things. When you have all these wonderful thoughts about God, you're not afraid. But sometimes we also forget those things and we're afraid. We forget that
Mhm.
God is an amazing, powerful God.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And something that I've been kind of on this studying, like, I said I went kind of a deep dive in the Enneagram a while back. And I'm still like, I still love that. I still love to talk about it, but I've been more focused on emotional health lately and just learning a lot about that, and like as opposed emotional maturity as opposed to emotional immaturity, and marks
Mm,
of both. And one thing that has really stuck out to me, that has really helped me, because I am by nature and nurture an anxious person. And I've been learning where that's coming from, where that stems from. I'm sure that I'll learn more, just looking back. That's one great thing about middle life, right? Midlife is you have some life to look back on and kind of analyze and learn from. And so, I have a lot of anxiety and fear, but I'm learning that right now, that's something that's been helpful to me, is that a mark of emotional maturity is being able to tolerate uncomfortable feelings. And so for me, in my emotional immaturity, I wasn't taught, and it's okay. Like when I think of the word immaturity, like I always think of that as so negative, and it is used negatively a lot, but it just means it's not mature yet. It's just there's areas that are just still immature and they need to mature. So I just thought that these anxious feelings and fears and stuff were marked me as bad. And so I would want them to go away. And so I get mad about them. I would numb out, go watch a TV show. And sometimes that is helpful to kind of calm those thoughts down. I would, I don't know. Had all kinds of coping mechanisms trying to figure out how to just make them go away. And I'm learning now that it's part of it's wired in me. It's part of my humanity, my unique humanity, that I'm going to have these certain triggers, things that are going to cause anxiety in me. And it's okay. Like just that layer of saying it's okay. Like, yes, I'm uncomfortable. I don't like being uncomfortable, but I can do this.
yeah.
And the more that I've been kind of just working through like sitting with that discomfort, telling myself it's okay that I'm uncomfortable in this moment, and then I'm able to accomplish what I need to accomplish, it calms that, for the next time I can kind of tell myself, now remember before. It's like reparenting, parenting yourself, like
Yeah.
remember before you felt so uncomfortable and then it all turned out fine. You just went through with it, and we can do this again. And if you mess up, then that's okay. We'll figure out how to go from there. And so anyway, that's been really helpful to me.
That is such such a great topic. For me, what was helpful in dealing with anxiety was realizing that being anxious about my anxiety literally doubled my anxiety. So it's like I'm anxious and I shouldn't be anxious. So then you just kind of get trapped in this loop of I'm anxious about my anxiety. I'm anxious about my anxiety. And to just be able to
Mhm.
say, oh, I'm just anxious right now, but I don't have to be anxious about it. I can just
Yeah.
recognize that, yeah, the two prongs. Step number one, I think, for dealing with anxiety was just not being anxious about being anxious, just letting
Mhm.
it be there, being okay with that. And then what you said, you know, is kind of exposure therapy. Instead of drawing back, you still put yourself in situations that might make you anxious because on the other side of it, you can look back and said, hey, I handled that.
Yeah. And everyone's different. There, like you said, in this day and age, the anxiety is on the rise. There are a lot of people dealing with anxiety, I think, since the pandemic. But that the triggers of the anxiety, what causes one person to be anxious as opposed to what causes another person to be anxious can vary greatly.
Yeah.
And there's that's that comparison. Sometimes I'll do that where I'm like, well, this for most people this wouldn't be anxiety inducing. At least that's my judgment in my mind.
Yeah.
So, but it's anxiety producing for me. And so just accepting that, just getting understanding that, learning where I've come from and how I've grown and all the experiences I've had, just saying, of course, that's going to make me feel anxious, because of these things. I understand that. And my body, it's a physical thing. My body, I
Yes.
start getting short of breath. My muscles get tense. I just have these different physiological responses to that anxiety, which makes it even harder, like to push through it. So I have to recognize that. And like you said, with exposure therapy, I feel like that's something that's a gradual thing. If you're ever going through exposure therapy for something, from my understanding, it's just like, first you do this little thing, and
Yes.
then you get a little more comfortable with that. And then you push it a little bit further, so just being gracious with myself, and recognizing, okay, I did that. I don't have to go full force into something someone else is doing. I can take those little steps and just trust that eventually, I can reach this goal that I have, or reevaluate and say, maybe that's not a goal that I really should be pushing for. I don't know, but I just
Yeah.
think those baby steps is really where it's at. Just being gracious and understanding and loving to yourself, but at the
Yes.
same time, not overdoing it on the self-care where you're just, that's all you're doing is just taking care of yourself and just sitting and doing nothing. Because I don't think that that's, I remember you telling me that back when you were coaching me. You would say, well, what do you want to do? And I'm like, I want to like sit at home and watch Netflix and just just chill in my pajamas like all day every day. And you were like, is that really what you want to do for the rest of your life? And it was like, no, that's not really what I want to do. Maybe right now, but
Yeah.
not for the rest of my life. That would get old.
Yeah.
So yeah, but it's just a slow process. And that's what God's been doing in me, is just this. So he's given me this season where I have been able to learn and grow and rest. And then now I feel like it's time to start making some little baby steps. And it's scary, but I feel like it's time. So
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's helpful. And I think I talked to you about this, like sometimes comparing, like imagining there's almost two parts of you,
mhm,
the one that's anxious and then the one that desires to
mhm,
grow, and making them play nicely together, like
100%.
make room for
Yes.
both of them. So, like I don't think I think that is a common misconception of self-care, is that if this makes me nervous, I should then keep it out of my life and never, do it. Or, if it makes me feel better to, watch Netflix all the time, then maybe that's what I should do. I should just make myself feel better. And it's like,
Right.
but big picture, is that
Mhm.
because I could feel the same thing, like the anxious part of me makes me just want to sit at home under a blanket, you know. And then the part of me that, you know, is curious and, wants to discover, wants to go out, wants to meet people, wants to have a bigger life. That when I do those things, that makes me tired,
Yes.
but fulfilled. And I
Mhm.
have to also then give myself permission to rest again and not judge, like, I don't know. I'm an introvert married to an extrovert.
Mm.
So it is very easy for me to judge, like my husband just goes out and, has a great time, and I go out and I tire way faster than he does. Part of that. And I just love how these two conversations that we're having, like emotional intelligence and personality types, they really play together, because when you understand your personality type through any frame, it then makes you realize, oh, there's parts of me that I have been thinking I should be like them. And I have been ignoring that this is how I was created to be. And also, I mean, emotionally healthy is taking care of your emotions in a healthy way,
Mhm.
not indulging them, not staying, in it, but just, you said a word, parenting, like
Yeah.
self-parenting or something, I think you said.
Mhm.
And I think that's just a great way of doing it. Just like we would encourage our little kids to try something new, but, not push them to the point of being traumatized.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Same thing with
absolutely.
us. And I love how you kept on saying the word gracious, like be more
Mhm.
gracious to myself, or, so that's
Yeah.
so good.
And I mean, like you had said, when you are taking care of yourself and you're being kind to yourself, that's going to translate to other people. And so
Yes.
just that curiosity, being curious of, why am I feeling this way? Why do I struggle with this? Not in a like, why do I struggle with this? But just, genuinely curious. Like, why does that cause that reaction in my body? What was I just thinking? You talk about those, paying attention to those. And it's when you're living a busy life, you can't always just stop with every little thing and analyze, but there definitely needs to be some time that you're taking note of it, or later in the evening or at the end of the week, whatever works for individuals, but that you at least pay attention and get curious. Like, why did I respond that way? Why did I react that way? And yeah, and just be able to try to work through those, and what can I change in my thoughts and things like that. But when you're doing that for yourself and you're getting curious, like I think it's just naturally you get curious about other people.
Yeah.
And instead of getting mad, like, why did you do that? Or why did you respond that way? And getting defensive and blaming and criticizing in your relationships, it's better to have that curious, like, what was happening there, and try to find out from them, because we are different. So just because, and I think we do that sometimes, we think, well, if I was in this situation, this is how I would respond. Or if I said those words, this is what I would mean behind that. This
Mm,
would be the meaning behind it. And you just assume, you project onto this other person that because they said that or they acted that way, that that's what they meant by it. And instead of projecting and assuming, because you're coming from just what your understanding of yourself and how you work, being able to be curious and understand that they're a completely different person, and they might not have meant that when they said that or did that. So yeah, just that understanding of, I'm an introvert, he's an extrovert. I don't know if I'll ever fully understand that, how you can go out and be around so many people and then come home still full of energy, whereas it like drains me. You may never like fully understand it because you don't experience it, but at least trying to understand it and recognizing there is a difference and giving space for that difference, is just
oh,
very
it's
helpful.
everything. It's
Yeah.
so, yeah, compassion and curiosity, between the
Mhm.
two of it. That was the thing. I think maybe probably one of my top frustrations growing up, because even as a child, I recognized I had a judgment problem. Like I am judging right and wrong. Everything's got to be black and white. And through my study and through my, like you said, middle-aged perspective, I realized that's because I was trying to feel safe. Like, what are the rules so I can obey them?
Mhm.
And so then, therefore, this is black and white in my life. And then, therefore, also, it has to be black and white in everybody else's life, or should be, or we're all in trouble. And I try to just stop judging. And that doesn't work. It really doesn't, because I'm still judging myself and I'm trying not to judge others. So then I'm like, well, I'm pretending that I'm not judging others and I'm just self-control. Lord, help me hold my tongue. But my thoughts are like going crazy. But it did not work to stop judging. It did work to replace judging with curiosity and compassion. Curious questions, compassionate questions. And so that's why, yeah, for example, like when we were coaching together, you were saying, I just really want to Netflix, like just, sit and watch. By that time, I knew, well, the answer is not to say, hey, Stephanie, you need to get out more. You need to find out what you were created for and, go, go, go. Why are you sitting at home for? There's people to be saved and there's things to be done for the kingdom. And come on. Oh my gosh. I'm winding us both up with this.
Yeah.
But it's like, it's that compassion and curiosity piece. Why does that appeal to you? Because we're doing things, even things that we don't feel great about. We're doing them because they serve some kind of purpose in our life. And I've seen a lot of Christian women who were raised up in either legalistic or other backgrounds, or maybe it's just because they're women, but they equate busyness with productivity and productivity with worthiness. And then they're going constantly all the time. And they're just looking for permission to rest, but they almost can't give themselves permission to rest. And so I just keep on coming across it that a lot of times people that are saying, isn't it okay if I just sit down? It's like 100% yes, it's okay. Yes, you don't have to do anything to earn your rest. Just like if that's what you want to do in your life, you go ahead.
Yeah.
And also just ask the question, is that, really what you want to do with the rest of your life? Right. Without any pressure. We're not going to say if you say yes or no, that you got to get up and do something tomorrow. I think that pressure just makes it so much harder for us to find our purpose. Yeah. So
Yes.
what do you think about that?
You've got to be able to take space. Yeah, for sure. I mean, and I actually just listened to your podcast, your most recent podcast about the busyness. And so I was, thinking about that, like just the running. And often we do that to run from our feelings or whatever. Like, I mean, you're looking for value, but at the same time, another benefit that comes with that is I don't have to face my feelings because I don't have time for that,
Right.
And just being able to realize you have permission, you have it, especially in America, you have options to be able to work towards curating a life that you feel led to live and that you can enjoy. Just thinking about it brought up the passage of Martha and Mary, and I remember being sometimes confused about that because Mary's you got to eat, right? You got to have a meal. And so Martha's in there doing
Somebody's got to feed those men. They don't know how to cook.
They're cooking and doing a good work. And Mary's over there just being able, like, that's honestly in those like philosophical or theological discussions, that's where I feel drawn to is I want to go sit down and let's talk deep about this. Like, yeah, we'll eat eventually. I'm not the natural, like, go in the kitchen and I do it because I need to for my family, but I don't feel drawn to, be in the kitchen and making the meals. So I could see myself being pulled like Mary, where I want to sit there. But in my mind, that's not really what you should be doing because you should be helping and make sure things are getting done because it has to get done. And maybe as a woman, I would have that extra pressure. And so I remember, that passage when Jesus says, Martha, Martha, you're worried about so many things. Mary's chosen the better part. That has confused me at times where I'm
Yes.
like, well, then who's going to cook the meal? Like poor Martha, like, cause I have found myself there where I'm like, I'm doing everything, and why won't this person come help me? And then sometimes I've probably been the person where somebody else is doing it all and I'm not aware and I'm doing something else, but just that idea that Martha, just by her sitting and listening and learning, she's picking the better part, so, but at the same time, we can't just always be sitting there thinking and talking and like there is action
Well, we
that needs
might
to
be able
happen.
to in this day with like Uber delivery meals
Yeah,
and
that's
things like
true.
that. I mean,
That is
I mean,
true.
that's like
But
really the
somebody's doing
magic.
it.
Yeah.
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 Somebody has
And
to be doing it.
I think it amazes me like how needed that story is in the Bible for us. Because, like what you said, it is so confusing.
Mhm.
Because even though your whole nature, and mine is too, is to like be drawn to, discussion, listening, learning, it's why we probably both went to Bible college.
Mhm.
And yet, you know, the way we were raised or the way, we've translated things in our own mind, if somebody else is, clicking dishes in the background, it'd be like, oh, I shouldn't be sitting, I should be up
Mhm.
doing. And I've chewed on that lesson for so many times because it's kind of like there's times when I felt more drawn to Mary, there's times when I felt more drawn to Martha. But like, how can we have both? How can the family eat and I also have time to sit down and study and read? If that's what God has put in my heart as a desire, then how can we have both? And then you find out, we do have so many advantages that sometimes we don't take advantage of. My mom, I've told her over and over again, she should be a robot vacuum salesman because she loves those things so much and has talked so many people into buying them. She even bought two for her church. They have a small church.
Oh.
And it's pretty amazing to run up to their very, very small church on a Tuesday morning and see a robot vacuum just vacuuming. And it's like, oh, look, one less person that has to vacuum because the robot is doing it, And
Mhm.
sometimes we think that the virtuous path is in doing the work and doing it the hard way and doing it in the most busy way or the most outlandish way. And sometimes it's like, no, let's just do it in the simplest way so we can get back to what we truly love doing, which is
Mhm.
sitting at Jesus' feet or studying or, that quieter life. So
Yeah.
that's what I think, the lesson of Mary and Martha is God created them both with kind of like unique gifts and callings. And, Martha's mistake was in thinking that her way was the right way and the only way. And I could totally identify with that.
Yeah.
And Mary's to be different and to be sitting at Jesus' feet.
Mhm. Yeah,
So
totally enthralled and
yeah.
yeah, and the idea that yeah, that there was something wrong, like Martha felt like Mary was doing something wrong,
Yeah.
and there's been many times that I've looked at this story and I'm like, well, yeah, I mean, she should be in there helping her,
Hello.
but
Who's
then
got to fix the
again,
food?
I
Yeah.
know. And then again, like also, I don't know what the culture was like exactly back then, but Martha could have been overcomplicating things, because I've been there too, where I'm like,
Oh, who
well, we've
hasn't?
got
I
to
mean,
have
right.
this 5 course meal or 12 course meal or whatever, and I've got to like all these new recipes, and then I get myself overwhelmed because there's no way one person can do all of that on time. So then I'm like transferring it to you should be in here helping me, and it's like you're the one who made the choice to make it so complicated. Let's just have chicken noodle soup and do the important thing, which is sit around in this particular
It's
instance,
kind of like
sit.
love, right? Love what you're doing and why you're doing it all the way through, kind of things. Like, how can we use our talents more instead of thinking that we should be like somebody else?
Right. Or
Yeah.
expecting that they should be like you
Or
too.
expecting that they should be like us, or expecting that they should be helping us with our thing all the time because we've got
Right.
ourselves
So,
into a mess. Like, learn that lesson.
yeah. Yeah.
Oh, wait.
Yeah. And I
And
mean, that
also
just,
ask nicely when you do get yourself into those messes, like, hey, listen, kids,
yes,
because of my
yes.
peeled potatoes, I really miscalculated my time.
Yes. Yeah. And I've totally put Jeremy in that situation so many times in the past where, because he's so easygoing and he's very willing to help, but there have been times where now I'm frantic. And
Yeah.
it started downstream where I came up with this complicated idea and now I've run out of time and I need help. And so now he has to enter that anxiety a little bit and try to help solve it, and that's okay. I mean, that happens sometimes, but if it's a pattern, then we need to kind of figure out, like, what are we
Yes.
doing here? Like, why do I keep finding myself in this situation? And so I have over the years had to make things a little less complicated because then I can actually accomplish it. There are some people who they're amazing hostesses. Everything looks immaculate. They have a wonderful meal provided. It's just they're just natural hostesses. And and if they can do that and they enjoy it and it doesn't cause stress or anxiety to their family, that is a gift and I admire that. But I have just recognized I've tried that and I have a picture of what I want it to look like. It's kind of like the Pinterest. Like, this is what
Yes.
it's supposed to look like and this is how it turned out. Like, I might could get it close to Pinterest, but it took a lot of stress and anxiety to get there, so it's probably not worth it. So for me, like, I have had to realize that might be great. And there is a little twinge of jealousy when I come over to somebody's house and they just have everything just beautiful. And then I just have to accept that, I'm happy for them and I'm glad I get to sit and enjoy it with them and that they were happy to do that for me. But I don't have to be like them. Like, I can serve chili when they
Yes.
come over out of paper bowls and, whatever. And we can still have a great time and, fellowship and love on one another. And that's
Yeah.
okay. Neither one is better than the other.
They're not. They really aren't. Neither style of being is better. It's just all of us utilizing our gifts. And that is one of the benefits of living in advanced society. It's the blessings of optimization and specialization. And we all get to lean more and more into that. And if we realize that, then we only make the world a better place, because we get to lean even further into our purpose and our talents and our abilities, and then bless other people and also enjoy spending, I think, more time doing the things that God has gifted us in and sharing that with others. It creates a great life.
Yeah.
Are any final words on either emotional intelligence, understanding your personality so that you can appreciate yourself and appreciate the differences in others, or the benefits of being middle aged?
Just the fact that this has been such a fun journey. Like, at times it's been painful and uncomfortable, super uncomfortable, but I'm just really excited about what's ahead. I'm just very thankful that I'm learning about emotional health and all the things that I've been learning about. And I'm certainly not an expert, and I'm just in the stage where I'm like putting things in practice. The reason I want to be emotionally healthy is because I want to be in emotionally healthy relationships and I want to build a community. And I don't feel like I have known how to do that. I haven't been in community with people who know how to be in an authentic relationship. And I say and or, but just and I haven't known how to be in an authentic relationship. It's a vulnerable place and letting people see who you really are and what you really are struggling with and where you really are on that emotional maturity spectrum. But I'm really excited because I feel like I'm getting more and more tools that, you know, I'm getting more hope that yes, it's going to be difficult and there may be setbacks and people may get upset with me and I may get upset with them, but we can repair, and we
Yes.
can get back to that better place. And it's not like stonewall, okay, I'm done with them. Now who else can I be in a relationship with? Because that just went south and I don't know how to fix it. But I feel like I'm getting more and more tools to know how to repair from that for on my side and try to fix it with them and also be able to say if they don't want to repair it, then that's okay. Maybe they're just not in a place in their life where they want to go there, and that's okay. Maybe there's somebody else that I can, be in relationship with. But so I'm just still learning and I'm practicing, and it's scary when you start practicing something you're not familiar with because you're gonna fail and you're gonna be clumsy. But the more practice, the better you're gonna get. So
Yeah.
I'm just really excited about all the things I'm learning and just being able to put it in practice as we go on.
You just said so many nuggets of gold, but it's like, you have to have compassion or graciousness with yourself to practice, to not know, but practice. You have to have curiosity, to try new things so that you can get to a greater understanding.
Hmm.
To get that greater understanding, you kind of have to bring those attitudes with yourself. And yeah, we're going to have you on the podcast again to talk about, like building community
Mm.
and, the tools and the techniques for being able to repair hurts instead of just shutting down. I mean, that's a whole nother topic for a whole nother day. Stephanie, this has been amazing. Thank you for sharing your insights about, personality tests and emotional healthiness, emotional maturity, spiritual maturity. Appreciate it.
Mhm. Sure thing. Thank you, April.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.